Have you ever thought that you were prepared for something like an outdoor adventure, a hiking trip, backpacking trip, kayaking trip, and you weren't prepared and you only found out when you were on the trip? It can be a pain in the butt and it's not fun to be in. Well, this particular situation was not hiking or backpacking, it was flying. And I want to tell you about this story because it's important and I learned a few lessons in my life on this trip. I was in Oklahoma at the time. I was in the Air Force and I had already trained and become a private pilot. I was currently working on my instrument training and I was probably about 3/4 way through the course, so I knew a lot about flying in bad weather and in difficult situations because I had already taken advanced flight simulator courses in addition to flying out in the real soup. But when I was flying out in IFR weather, I was with my flight instructor, so this was different. I took a trip by myself. Now my flight instructor was also a corporate pilot, and so he was flying somebody, won't mention the name, and he was flying from Oklahoma City, the Wiley Post Airport on the northwest side of Oklahoma City, and he was flying down to Lake Texoma, and I don't remember the name of the airport. But the airport was in Texas, so he said, hey, fly down there in the 172 you're in. I'll meet you down there. We'll do some flight training and we'll have some fun. You'll spend the night with me and we'll hang out and have a blast. So I had everything all set up, and you know when you're in a situation like that and weather comes in, a lot of times you're obligated or you feel obligated. So I'm heading out, I'm getting all ready, and all of a sudden thunderstorms start to pop up. Now they're not bad. In fact, I didn't even know they were there. Now if I would have checked the forecast better, I would have known. But I take off from Wiley Post Airport, everything's fine, and I'm flying south-southeast, and I'm flying over Norman. I'm supposed to be actually east of Norman, over Thunderbird Lake, and all of a sudden a thunderstorm kicks up over Thunderbird Lake. So I start flying closer to Norman, and there's an airport there. I'm not on a flight plan or an instrument flight plan because I'm not instrument rated yet, but I start moving away from where ATC had told me to go. Well, ATC contacts me from the Norman airport and says, hey, you're getting too close to the airport. And I radioed back. I told them, I said, there's a thunderstorm out here and I can't get over that lake. And they said, we don't have anything on radar. And there was a big crackle of lightning. And I was like, guaranteed there's a thunderstorm. So they let me alone and let me fly closer to the airport. Well, that was only the beginning of a horrendous flight. I'm actually flying south still towards Texoma or into Texas, and thunderstorms start kicking up all around. So at one point, I'm flying in between two thunderstorms. Now, I'm probably 21, 22, somewhere in there. I'm still young enough to be stupid, and I still might be, but I'm flying in between these thunderstorms, and I don't have the sense to go land at an airport and wait for these to pass. So there's lightning crackling off of both sides of my airplane. I'm not sure how close it was, but it had to be within 10 miles. And when you're within 10 miles and say, if I split the difference, it's maybe 5 miles on each side, that lightning can reach out and touch you. Well, I get through that and that's cleared, and I get down to Lake Texoma. And the airport's on the south side of Lake Texoma. So I get over there and all of a sudden there's a massive thunderstorm over the airport and I can't land. Now I've been through a lot of training as a pilot, but you know, things still just aren't clicking with me. I could have sat there over the lake and watched where that storm was moving and just circled in an area and waited for the storm to pass, because those storms move quickly. Most of the time they move quickly, sometimes they'll move slow, but if you wait and just circle for a little bit, and as a pilot you always have some reserve fuel, then that storm could have moved on. But I thought I needed to land. Well, there was an airport on the map, but it was a private airport and it was a grass strip. And in an emergency situation, you can use airports like that. And it wasn't an airport, it was just a grass strip. I should have done a little more research even there, and I should have flown low over the field and probably seen that the grass was pretty tall and hadn't been cut. And another weird thing about it was up on a cliff over the lake, and so you're coming up into this airport and you think you got a lot of distance because between you and the lake there was probably several hundred feet. But then I get close to the grass strip and all of a sudden it's right there because it jumps up. So I come in there and I land on the grass strip, no big deal, but I see that the grass is at least 2 feet feet tall, probably 3 feet tall. And I turned around and I taxied back to where the road was at. There was a home there, and the people came out to meet me. They have an airplane, but it's not at that grass strip. And we started talking. I told them about the situation. They were really nice people. Of course, they're Texans, and I think all Texans are nice, right? Now, coming from Oklahoma, I have to say Texans are mean, especially in October when OU and Texas play. And just by the way, if you're from Texas, it's OU Texas, not Texas OU. I'm out here videoing, there's a plane flying over, but since I'm talking about planes, it's okay. So enjoy listening to this. Sounds like a 172 flying close by. So I'm talking to the owners of this property, and they said, I don't know if you're gonna be able to take off. We haven't mowed this grass and it's really tall. Are you sure you wanna take off? And at the end of this grass strip, there was a tree line, and those trees, I mean, probably at least 30 feet tall. But I had practiced a lot of soft field landings and landings with obstructions at the end of the runway. But I had always practiced those in a flight simulator or at an airport. Never in real life with tall grass and an obstacle at the end of the runway. So I get all the way back as far as I can, because you gotta go full power. You gotta pull up off the grass and you gotta get out of that mud or the grass so then you can get speed. And then right before the obstruction, then you pull up and you get over the obstruction. And I did it, and I did it perfectly. My flight instructor would have been very impressed. Probably not impressed that I landed on a grass strip, but that's okay. I learned something that day. So I get off there, I survived that. I have other stories where I did stupid things as a pilot and I'm still alive, but I won't tell you about those stories. Well, I get over to the airport and I land and I meet my flight instructor there, and then we drive over to the lake to where he's got a cabin or something, and I tell him my story. I don't remember what his response was, other than it was probably, thank goodness you're alive even though you're stupid. You know, I don't even remember if we actually did any flight instruction when we were down there, because there was other thunderstorms. What I do remember is we went to the marina that night and we kind of got dressed up a little bit, and we met a lot of people down there who were having some fun. They were partying, and there was a lot of rich people, and there was some yachts and things like that. So it was his idea to go down there and act like Air Force pilots. Now, I was in the Air Force enlisted, and I was a pilot, and he was a pilot, but we were not Air Force pilots. And we were definitely not fighter pilots. I don't care what kind of pilot you call it. We weren't that kind of pilot. But we were doing our best to blend in and act like we belonged there, plus then act like we were pilots. And we knew a lot of lingo, but I'm sure the people saw right through us. The lesson there is, if you're gonna act like an Air Force jockey, you better probably do a little more research and have that lingo down and have a better story to tell than maybe I had. So that was another situation where I went out not flying, but not prepared to tell a story or lie about my experience. So don't ever lie about what you are or what you have done or not done. It's not smart. So the next day I get up and I'm flying back to Oklahoma City, then he's flying his client back to Oklahoma City, and the weather's not very good at all. There's no thunderstorms, but it's a low cloud cover and it's barely VFR. So if you don't know anything about flying, VFR is visual flight rules. And my flight instructor and I, we were looking at it, he goes, oh, you're good, but I was only going to have about 1,000 foot above me for where the clouds were at, and you're supposed to have at least 500 foot above you. And I believe I had to be at least 1,000 or 1,500 feet above the surface of the ground. So I didn't have a lot of room, and the cloud cover was right there. So I start flying back, and I had no problems because I had all the instrument flight training pretty much all done. I knew how to fly by the instruments. But what I found was, all of a sudden, I had to keep a certain elevation above the ground, and I couldn't see in front of me. I was right at the base of the clouds so I could see below me, but I could not see around me. I was in the clouds. I was in IFR weather. If anybody with the FFA is watching this and wants to get me in trouble, remember that this was in 1989, and it's been a long time, and I haven't flown in a while, so I would never do that again. So the whole way back from Texoma or Lake Texoma to Oklahoma City to Wiley Post Airport, I'm in the clouds the whole time. Now I can see the ground, remember, but I'm still illegal and I'm flying in the clouds. I get back to the airport and I'm using all my instruments, and I land at the airport because it's no big deal for me because I know what I'm doing. I'm on the glide path and I come down, and now when I get to Wiley Post Airport and I'm on that glide path and I'm coming down, I get out of the clouds and I land. Well, I taxi over to where you tie up the aircraft, and I get out of the airplane, and my flight instructor comes out and he goes, "You are the luckiest guy ever. They just declared the weather IFR." And I just started laughing, and I told him, I said, I was in IFR the whole way. Well, he didn't report me, so thank God he was a nice guy. You know, I'm not sure what kind of trouble I would have got in. I was a pilot, and I was training to be an instrument pilot, and I found myself in a situation where I was in IFR. But I had to get down, I had to land. Now, I shouldn't have kept flying. I should have landed somewhere probably in Texas or southern Oklahoma. But again, there was stupidity in my life at that point more than there is now. At least I sure hope there is. Well, I wanted to tell you guys this story because it was an interesting one where I was stupid and I thought I was prepared, but I really wasn't prepared for everything. And this all comes back to everything I do out here in Colorado. When you're out hiking, backpacking, kayaking, whatever it might be, hunting, fishing, you need to be prepared. And the reason I bring this up is because I have these satellite communicators, and many of you do too, and you test them once or twice and you think you're prepared, but I can't tell you how many times I have not been prepared. When I test these over and over, I'll get out here and I'll find out that I messed something up or something doesn't work right. So always be prepared with a satellite communicator or a ham radio, whatever you have. But spend some time getting to know it and testing it, or you may not be as prepared as you think you are. Well, that's it for my story today. And it's a gorgeous day here in Colorado, but a great day out in the mountains can turn out to be miserable if you're not ready. So get a satellite communicator, test it, be prepared, and have a great day wherever you're at in the world.